Hello, Steve Fletcher here, and welcome to another little bit of a vlog for this morning. I'm going to have a bit of a rant. I'm sorry. In fact, I'm not sorry. It's well, I don't know. If you're not in the mood for a bit of a rant, maybe you should look away now. It's something that's been bugging me for a really long time. And I went to a gig on Saturday night. And it really came to a head because it kind of just highlighted how massive a thing this has become and how massive a thing this is really annoying me. And I did a little bit of a comment thing about it on my Facebook page, which was nothing ruins a gig more than... And the unanimous answers were pretty much the same as mine, which helps me to think that I'm not just the only grumpy man in the room. And the answers were pretty much people talking, people getting their phones out, people singing on their own out of tune, people just being generally disrespectful to the artist and the events that they're seeing. Now, I'm not, before we sort of carry on, I'm not saying at all that people should be, dead silent. I want to make that absolutely clear at a gig. I think people should have a great time. People should enjoy themselves. If there's a song that everyone is singing, then go nuts. Have a good sing. When the artist has finished the song, then give them their due and clap and applaud and whoop and holler. It's when the artist is singing, especially when they may be singing a nice, delicate song, that's not the time for you to have a chat about yesterday's football or yesterday's EastEnders or anything at all. It's not the time for you to go, woo! It's not the time to go, I love you, artist! When they're singing a song. What do you expect them to do when they do that? So yeah, and I went to a gig in a small theatre. I went to see Colin Hay. Let me set the scene. I went to see Colin Hay. So I was very looking forward to seeing him. And because he is a more mature gentleman, the audience was a more mature audience. And they were quite possibly one of the most disrespectful audiences I've ever known. And it really took me aback, and it really did make me think, wow, maybe this is where we've got to now, that it is just normal and it's sort of socially acceptable for audiences to chat and talk and shout out and heckle and get their phones out, and while the artist is singing, this audience was incredibly rude, incredibly disrespectful. It was a small theatre that we saw him in. He was a funny guy. Don't get me wrong. He's a funny guy. It wasn't a serious gig. He's a funny guy. He tells some funny, silly stories and makes you laugh and makes you giggle, and maybe that contributed to this sort of all atmosphere of people thinking that it was okay to sort of shout out and heckle. I mean, Colin Hay, bless his heart, he didn't respond to any heckles whatsoever. Maybe it would have helped if he had done, but maybe that would have ruined the vibe that he was trying to go for. But people were just, we love you, Colin, and woohoo, and you should do this, and blah, blah, blah. And it was unbelievable. And while he was singing, while he was playing, while he was talking, and it really took me aback. There was a person in the Colin Hay audience, and it was a theatre, and we were all sort of sat on tiered seating in this theatre. There were probably no more than about 2,000 people. And there was a person about, 3 or 4 rows back, stood up in a seat, dancing and singing and clapping and whooping and hollering. And this is an acoustic gig. And I just thought, oh my goodness me, those poor people sat around this person. And it was the whole night they were up on their feet, like that. That this sort of audience who, I don't know, in my head were old enough to maybe know better, to sort of have a little bit of manners and a little bit of, I don't know, a bit of consideration for other people. It wasn't just something, and obviously I'm generalising, I'm aiming my rant at that audience, but it is the same for all audiences. I went with my partner to see Colin Hay, and they were saying, maybe it's COVID, maybe people have just got to a bit of a stage now with post-COVID where they're just thinking, well, stuff everybody else, I'm going to have a good time. Which is, I don't want to think that that's what it is, because that makes me really sad for society, that people are might think like that I don't care, I'm going to have a good time. I went to see Queen and Adam Lambert a few years ago, and during Love of My Life, which everyone knows is like the big sort of moment, sort of pulling at your heartstrings moment at the shows, there were people on the floor. It was in Sheffield Arena, so it's a big arena gig, and obviously you can't expect in an audience of, I don't know, 10,000 people that there's not going to be a handful of idiots. But people were standing in a big huddle and getting their phones out and with a flash, with the big beam flash, taking photos of each other while Brian May was singing Love of My Life. And the act can see you. The act can see you doing that. I'm an artist, laughingly describe myself as an artist. You can see it. You can see people doing that. You know people aren't listening. And not only does it ruin the atmosphere for everyone around you, it's really upsetting to the artist. And I'm sure Brian May has developed a thick skin towards this stuff over the years. But if it was me, if I was in a small venue and someone was taking a selfie while I was trying to play, I would just get that impression that like the whole audience is just bored, and it would really knock me off my game, which would therefore in turn ruin the concert experience for everyone, because I would just feel like, well, why should I put 100% in? And the audience don't even care. Why is it okay for you to pay money, 50, 60? I mean, concert tickets aren't cheap these days. Why is it okay? Why do you think it's all right to pay, say you paid 75 quid for a concert ticket, and just talk throughout the show and talk to people about, what was on TV last night and while the artist is performing? I don't understand it. I don't get that mentality, and it winds me up, and it basically ruins the evening in a nutshell. Like I say, I'm not expecting audiences to just be completely silent and just sit there dumb and, respect the artist's art. It would be lovely. And obviously, in certain places, if you went to a pub, if you sat down to a pub and there was a guy singing in the corner, again, it's socially acceptable in that situation for you to be not listening to that guy, because that's not why you went to the pub. And I've been there, I've been that artist in the corner, and people aren't listening to you, but that's okay, because there might be 2 or 3 people around you who are. I can't really hold festivals and stuff in the same regard, because festivals are a bit more of a party atmosphere. So it's a bit more sort of socially allowed, I guess, if you were going to go and see a festival. The people aren't going to be into that one artist that you're into. So I'm not really talking about that. But I'm talking about when you've paid money to go to a venue. I went to see Paul Simon about 10, 15 years ago in Hyde Park in London. And, his name was on the ticket. Some guys staggered across and sort of looked to the stage. Who's that? Who is that? Is that Paul Simon? And it's like, how do you not know that that's Paul Simon? You've bought the ticket. Which brings me to another subject, which is sort of dear to my ranty heart, of why I think it is that people are getting more and more like that. And I have to say, and it's a real personal bugbear of mine, is it's alcohol. It does seem to be more and more acceptable for people to go to gigs and treat them like they're football matches and just sort of drink 12 pints of Stella, get absolutely blitzed, and and do all that. I went to see Porcupine Tree about 3 or 4 months ago at Wembley Arena, and I was, on the end of an aisle, but the whole night was people just coming backwards and forwards with trays of pints of lager. One person would disappear out of the arena and come back with a tray like that. But then like half an hour later, they'd do the same thing again. And you think, what are you doing? A, you're missing the show. That's the show happening over there. And B, you're going to get so utterly bladdered that you can't remember the show that you paid money to see. And you're going to get so utterly bladdered that you're going to act like a complete tool and spoil it for everyone in your vicinity. So yeah, I don't understand it, and it is a bit of a rant, and I do feel like I've just got to kind of get it off my chest a little bit. It's probably not going to help, because when I go to my next show, it'll be exactly the same thing. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer for this, and I am just sort of ranting into the phone, into my camera now. But yeah, so there we go. A bit of a rant for a Monday morning, and it's a shame, and it does upset and annoy me that this is happening. So I'm sorry, I have to apologise for being a bit of a ranty, bit of an old man, showing my age, I think. I don't know, maybe I'm not. I would just love to go to a gig where just the audiences are a bit more respectful. And it's not just me, because like I say, people do say it to me, you know, why do audiences act like that? Why do some people at an audience act like that? And it is the minority, I suppose. I hope it's the minority, but it is the minority that ruin it for the majority. But there you go. I think I best wrap it up now, because I've got nothing else to say. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry it's a bit of a moan for a Monday morning, but isn't that what Monday mornings are for? I'm going to try and think of something a little bit more cheerful for my next vlog. Please like this video if you can. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out my website. And we'll see you next time, boys and girls. Bye-bye.